Hello and welcome back to Perspectives Podcast. My name is Miguel. I'm joined here today with my co-host Abdul. Today we're going to be talking about the topic of why is it so hard to change. I know last week we discussed a little bit about some other things, but uh, look forward to the next episode. The next episode we're also going to be doing the happiness formula. So without further ado, Abdul, why is it so hard to change?
I think because the one thing that is summarizes all of it is that it takes so long for change, and like especially in this society, it's like you know we don't have the patience like our older ancestors did. Like even like food that comes out like in ordering restaurants after like 20 minutes, we start to get like a little anxious and like kind of pissed off, and it just takes too long. Um, Definitely, the ego is another thing. Like we have this like perceived idea of ourselves and what we should be, and then like it gets in the way of absolute like a genuine change. And like
Mm.
when like let's say for example like a person want to drop out of school and they have this idea of like dropping out and like becoming independent and like working and like find their own path, but that path doesn't happen. It's like they continue school and they finish school and da da da. Da. And it's like the ego is like, no, I'm supposed to be drop out, I'm supposed to like hustle, like. But it's like once you remove that ego, you let change happen naturally. You
Yeah,
know,
no, for sure,
yeah.
for sure.
And then one sec. Um, it's like we want an excuse to not do anything. And what I mean by that is that let's say I'm sitting on the couch playing Smash Bros. And someone tells me, bro, why don't you stop playing Smash Bros. And like go work on your craft? It's like, oh, I don't know, I don't like have like what it takes. I don't have the equipment. I don't have like the team for it. And like that's an excuse to not change. It's like, and it just makes things easier for us just to
Mm.
like sit there and like not have an excuse for it. And it's just like and like humans are we're delusional, and it makes sense. Um, and like it makes like, oh, like yeah, of course, like if I don't have a team, like of course I can't like continue to work on my craft. Like we try so hard to convince ourselves, and that doing that like it derails us from this beautiful change that humans can go through.
Mm.
Um, and then we also we hold on, before I say that, I'm gonna let you um
No, no. I mean,
lead.
feel free to continue your thought.
No, you got it. I was gonna
Okay.
go on a little rant.
All right. So I think you made a good point. You said like you introduced like the ego and why it's
Right.
important or how it's important with change. Um, I mean, ultimately, you had mentioned the ego helps prevents change and whatnot. That makes a lot of sense, right? Because our ego actually
Mm.
protects us in like every way possible, both physically, mentally. So oftentimes your ego, is the thing that it's basically your. If you're familiar with the idea of what is it? Ego death. There it is.
Mm.
Took me a while. Ego death is when people. We discussed a little about this last podcast, but ego death occurs when one sense of self basically dies, and you don't. You can almost view yourself in third person rather than your specific or your individual perspective. But
Mm.
the ego does everything it can to protect itself. So, for instance, you're driving and you see a vehicle that seems a little bit too close to you, right?
Mm.
Your ego is the thing protecting you and recognizing that danger. Um, and this is very similar in change as well. So the ego is very stubborn, right? Um, the the example you use with Smash and why don't you practice on your craft? When you hear those words and that that was introduced to you while you're playing Smash. Why don't you work on your craft? Your ego tells you this is an attack on your this is an attack against you. So your defense mechanisms spike up, and suddenly you start firing away excuses, or you start rationalizing. Oh, it's because I'm not going to be good enough, or oh, I'll do it in a bit, or I'll do it later, or I'm just taking a quick break, right? That fires up a bunch of excuses, because the ego wants to ensure itself that you're in no harm and what you're doing is okay.
Right.
It wants to eliminate all threats. That includes attacks to one's like verbal attacks to an individual.
Right.
You know, you know those moments when your parents are questioning you, like, oh, what are you gonna do, like,
Yeah, bro.
and then I don't know how to exactly put it, but you start to feel a little bit heavier. Your chest feels pretty dense, and you're like, oh fuck. I don't know. Your body temperature might rise. I'm not entirely sure about the
It's anxiety.
physiological reactions, right? But no, but for sure. I think change has to do a lot with the ego, and the big issue is the ego is very stubborn. It doesn't like change. It doesn't, because it gets comfortable, and this goes back to the comfort debate, or not. It's not really a debate, but why comfort in itself is dangerous. It's synonymous with complacency. Yada yada. It goes on. But yeah, for sure. Like, I think fundamentally speaking, change is hard because it requires energy.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go like completely off the rails, but like the universe started through motion, and heat, which is also considered energy. In order for things to happen, quite literally, things need to be moving, right? Atoms need to be moving, and if we go up and, I'm being a little bit more abstract. If we go back to like something that makes a bit more sense, if you want change to happen, you can't be complacent. You can't be idle. You need to physically move for things to happen, right?
Right. Yeah.
If you want to make a lot of fucking money, sure, it requires a lot of ideas and motivation, and all like these thoughts. But if you literally don't move, nothing will happen. This is why I think, fundamentally speaking, change is very difficult because movement is required. And the amount of change is directly proportional to the amount of movement. So, I mean, I don't know. I felt like I thought this while taking a dump. But sometimes you forget your phone and you're like, well, I guess I just sit here and read labels off the back of Lysol wipes. But, yeah, I mean, my mind wanders a little bit about these things and kind of go crazy in the meantime, but.
There was another thing I wanted to mention. I remember I wrote this, and it says that we tend to look for flaws in what we want to change. For example, let's say I wanted to be an obsessive, right? And like when that just the idea of becoming obsessive, like it becomes so like I start to think about it, and I start asking myself, like, what if I can't like stay in the studio for like 12 hours and like work on it? What if I find out I'm not built for this? Essentially it's fear. Like, what if I find I'm not? I can't come up with enough ideas. I can't do anything. Right. And it's like it was really scary, like, to think about change. And it's like it's really hard to like look in the mirror and tell yourself, nah, that's not right, Abdul. That's not. What are you doing, my guy? Like, why are you so angry? Why are you so dismissive? Why do you treat your mom like that? Why do you not help out? Why don't you work harder? And like sitting down and like trying to figure that out is not an easy thing to do. It's like, oh, it's because like, the past and then, it's like, I work like 3 hours a day. I put in good time. Like,
Right.
I'm working on it. Like, Like I've been practicing foundation and stuff like that. I'm good. My craft is fine. But in reality, I know that a few hours in the studio is not enough to get at
Right.
a satisfactory level.
Right.
Especially if I want to make a career out of like illustration and stuff. That's
Hmm.
not 3 hours is not ideal.
I mean,
Um,
it's kind of. I think those 3 hours in the studio are important, but
mm.
it's like
Oh yeah, most definitely.
multiple repetitions of those 3 hours.
Mm.
Do you get me? It's like so
Yeah,
three
cause it's
hours.
like
3 hours. Will Smith has like this, famous quote or whatever, uh, or he likes to allude to it all the time, um, or I like to allude to it. Excuse me. He had mentioned he had stated that if you want to build the best wall you can build, you don't stress about building the entire wall. You get
mm,
one brick and you lay it as perfectly possible. And in this case, the brick would be 3 hours in the studio. And then
mm,
you put on the next brick as perfectly as possible. That's the next day, another 3 hours. And those two bricks don't make a wall. They're just two bricks. But
right, right.
hundreds of those multiplied by hundreds of days multiplied by 3 hours. But yeah,
Mm.
definitely some good points.
That is very true. Um, yeah, that is very true.
Yeah. I also think
At the,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, you can go ahead.
I also think this goes back to some earlier discussions we had, but once again, we can reiterate. I think the thing that we have to dissect about change is, you know, people. I think generally speaking, people like the idea of change, but
Oh
people
yeah,
don't like
okay.
the process of change. So, when I think of change, I'm like, oh, I'm a better person, and wealthier both in mind, spirit, yada yada. The list goes on, right? Um, but when I break down how to get to there, that's when the anxiety sets in, and that's when I start overthinking and maybe, uh, you know, harshly critiquing myself, scrutinizing every flaw that I have, because that's kind of what you need to do in order to change. So,
Mm,
um, one of the biggest ideas of change is, I guess, I don't know for you, but me speaking, I think there's like two really big things. It's like be a better person, and then increase like my monetary wealth. Those are like my two biggest focuses in change. Um, so just being a better person. So I love fantasizing about having like a Tesla, a Cybertruck, bread for days. I think
mm,
everyone can love that, in their own
right.
heads and their ideas. But when you start scrutinizing yourself and you start thinking about the process of change, okay, I need to eliminate this because I'm a piece of shit that just sleeps all day and actually doesn't do much, and um, I don't do things that, or I end up spending too much money. I buy things that I don't need. Um,
Mm,
you know, that's when the anxiety sets in, and that's the thing that is very difficult for people to analyze. I think like thinking about it is hard enough, but actually taking initiative, and then back to my movement idea, where like movement needs to happen. So we already established it's very difficult to think about the process of change, and it's even harder to find some initiative and begin acting upon that. And that
mm,
I think that's why it's so difficult. It's so fucking difficult, man.
most definitely. When you're sitting down and like telling yourself like your flaws and stuff like that, are you talk how do you usually talk to yourself?
Oh, I'm fucking I'm crazy, dude. Like sometimes I'll I don't know the right way to say this. Like I pretend I end up talking to myself a lot. I'm like I said, I'm fucking
Mm,
crazy, and I end up just having
I do the same
conversations.
thing, bro.
Yeah, no. I'd like to think I'm crazy, that way I have some type of excuse to like talk to myself
Word.
often enough. But I start saying like, "Yo, what the fuck are you doing, Miguel?" Or like don't be such a dumbass sometimes. And then I have like conversations in my head, and then I would say something, and then I forgot what it's called, but when there's an angel on one of your shoulders, then there's the devil on the other side. There's actually
Yeah.
there's like a term for that, but I know it's depicted in a lot
Um,
of animations or. or recent
What's it
mediums, but
called? I forget what it was called,
yeah.
but I know what you're talking about.
Yep. And so I have conversations with that, like going back and forth, um, and then I find myself finding myself more anxious right before going to bed.
Mm.
Cause like I guess there's less things for me to, cause when I'm going to bed, there's less things for me to be occupied by. Like I'm no longer on my computer. Um, Sometimes I escape, on my phone, and I find myself not actually sleeping because I'm spending way too much time laying there looking at my phone or looking at my devices,
Right.
which I guess is pretty important in this discussion. Like just eliminating your devices will definitely help.
Yeah,
But
yeah, it really will. Just clear your head.
yeah, no, but for sure, it's definitely a lot of anxiety. You know, I
Mm.
will, I'm sure everyone can think of positive change in their lives. But you get all this motivation right before you go to sleep, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna do this tomorrow. I'm gonna accomplish this, and then when you wake up, all of that is gone. All of that motivation is gone, and that's where discipline has to come in. You have to have a strong enough resolve where you remember it the
Yep.
next day, and even though you don't have any motivation, you still do it. And that goes
Yep.
back to the Mike Tyson quote. I think I've like definitely fallen for that quote. Where it's like you gotta do things you hate like you love them.
Boy, that's
You
the
know.
realest thing I've heard all year.
Dude, I hate lifting, this additional weight, fuck this additional weight.
Mm.
But I love the process. I love the process of looking fucking swole, Like,
Right, right.
I look fucking swole, I feel fucking great, I can visualize these things, I can imagine them in my head, like, okay, I feel great, I'm looking shredded, looking like a beast. But when I get to those dumbbells and I start lifting my first rep, I'm sorry, my first set, I'm like, yeah, fuck this. And that goes back to people love the idea of things. They don't love the idea, or they don't love the process of it.
Mm. Yeah, and it's very rare few that actually love the process, and it's hard to come by. That's why Kobe and David Goggins and Mike Tyson, you know, like there's such rare people in the world.
Mm.
That's why we look up to them, because it's like, I wish I had what they had. Um, you said I had a question, like, what are some of the biggest changes you've seen in yourself over these few years?
What are some of the changes? I think you asked this question a few podcasts ago, but
Yeah, yeah.
my answer will always be a little bit different depending on time frame.
Hmm.
I think I've developed more financial stability. Or no,
Mm.
I'm sorry, not stability. Financial intelligence. I think the stability was always there. It's not like I ever struggled for anything in my life. If I wanted food, I had food. If I wanted clothes, I got it. If I wanted something, I
Right.
could reasonably get it. So the stability was always there, but like the intelligence on how to actually see money for what it is. One of the biggest things I've changed about seeing money is like, I'm gonna hit you with a cliche where money isn't happiness. I think
Mm.
it is a tool that can contribute to happiness for sure, like without a doubt. But I noticed recently, this is actually kind of recent, that all like these things that I obsess over with, that like materialistic goods. Like I'm a big computer guy, and I love getting new computer components and fast graphics cards and nice components and nice looking components and getting these custom builds. Like that, whenever I think about it, I like geek out. Like this is my shit. But when I actually have it, I find that all that dopamine, all of that, all of that just vanishes, and then I'm back to square one. And once I get the things that I was very excited about and all these materialistic goods, all that happiness kind of subsides, and it quickly diminishes. So
Right.
the anticipation brought me more happiness than actually having the materialistic good. And the reason why I'm relating materialistic goods with monetary wealth is that's kind of what wealth buys. It's like materialistic goods. Sure, it can buy experiences, right? Like, you can travel the world with a lot of money, but for the sake of the examples that I'm using, yeah.
Right.
So like, money doesn't necessarily buy happiness. If I were to have a life where I have an extreme amount of fucking money, Or okay, let me kind of cut myself off, but I would rather be financially stable, making like 80, 90K a year, and have a lot of experiences rather than making like millions of dollars every year and like that being it. And I'm always working
Really.
and I'm not experiencing anything and all I'm doing is just slaving for money.
Mhm.
Because something happened to me recently and I think it's happening more and more. And I hopefully I can find some inner peace cuz I'm still confused. Like I really don't know a lot at this point, but
Mhm.
I'm finding that I'm more happy when I have more experiences, you know. Um,
Yeah, yeah, I feel that.
Rather than receiving a lot of or obtaining a lot of things or materialistic things. Like sure, a fucking Tesla would be amazing. You know, a Tesla right now, holy shit, I would whip in that shit all day. But then that happiness is temporary, and then I go back to sleep, and then I'm already experiencing anxiety about other things other than Tesla. For instance, oh well, I gotta pay my bills for my car, right? And like, well, I have a Tesla now, but like since I already have a Tesla, what's next? And I always end up expecting more. And it's like, well, I have a Tesla,
Mm.
so I guess I need this next, or maybe I need to try something else. I don't know. I'm just like
Um,
I'm just like speaking my internal monologue now at this point.
you know
But
that's perfect, man. It's always good for the soul when you do that. But I was reading this book called The Power of Now, or
mm,
rereading.
mm,
Um, and I came across something I didn't see before. It was talking about how when you're meditating and breathing, it was saying don't you can never understand what is going on in your body, never completely. And I think back then I thought like, oh, when I first read it, I like, oh dang, like this kind of sucks. I want to understand myself. I want to know my body. But it was like telling me like you just let yourself be. Um, you just watch it like I mean,
mm,
like I was trying to put that into practice, not only to myself but like the world, because I really don't know understand what is going on like in the world, like what are human beings like, you know, like it's crazy what we can do,
mm,
and like the trees around me, the how you can make a rock into a computer, and like that just creates that just like that just puts me in a whole different like world, and it's like I'm realizing now it's like we can never really understand what's going on. And I think I think that's the point. Like, we don't understand, so the whole thing is just like um, we watch it for what it is.
mm,
It's kind of like this. It's like kind of like being submit. Like you just submit to it. It's kind of like I feel like sorry, I'm like stuttering a lot. My bad.
yeah, no problem, no problem.
For me, I personally feel like the pinnacle of any craft is becoming selfless. Um, like you were saying before, like humans are naturally selfish. I think the goal, for what I'm observing, is to become selfless.
Mm,
Is to remove yourself, and that is like because you're never gonna stand, and that is when you become in a quote unquote better place.
mm,
Um, but that's like it's not an easy change to go through.
mm,
Like not everyone tells you gotta take care of yourself first. Um, don't worry about other people. And so it's like a hard thing to like try to like put into practice. But it's like you just
mm,
put it into like you try it out and like you start to see the differences. You start to see the changes.
mm,
It may like take like 10 years, but I feel like it's worth it.
mm,
And there's another thing I wanted to like talk about. It's kind of a weird idea, but it's like it's hard to change for some people. Is because when we think about change, let's say, let me slow it down a bit. My bad. I'll give an example. I'll use myself an example. Like my brothers they're amazing people, and like they love me and I love them. But to be honest, I don't want to be like them. I want to be I want to be my own person.
Mhm. Mhm.
I just want to be like what I like. Kind of contradicting myself. I want to be what I want to be. And like for example, let's say I see them. Like my brother always like he used to like try to like lecture me all the time, telling me don't do this, don't do that. Um, and like that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it got to the point like you starting to act like my father, and like that kind of bothered me a little bit. And, like you're not my father. I already have a father. Like,
Mhm.
or like you're just my brother. Like you being the same mistakes I made, and that kind of bothered me. And I told myself I'm not gonna do that. To anyone like anyone younger than me. So let's see if I have a little cousin that's going through like some problems. I would try to steer away from lecturing them, just because I don't like the qualities of my brother, what they did to me.
Mhm.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I would steer away from this idea because I don't want to be like them. Like I would steer away from that change.
Mhm.
You know, we try to steer away from the people we don't want to be, and I guess that I'm realizing now that is clouding me, is because you never know that being that person may be better for you, or being like having those qualities of that person may be better for you.
Mhm.
Like you never know.
Right.
I was stuttering a lot. My bad.
Yeah, no,
But
it's cool,
I hope
dude.
if that made any sense.
No, I got you. I got you. I mean, don't
Mm.
worry, dude. Don't worry about stuttering. We all stutter. I've stuttered
Word,
so many
word,
times in previous podcasts. Like, dude, it's whatever.
word. Appreciate it.
Like I stutter all the time. I get it.
Mm.
Don't think too much about it. But going back to some of the points. Yeah. No, I definitely agree with you. I have some similar takes where, not I don't necessarily compare myself with my brother. There's some instances where I did when he
Mm.
was moving out, and like it's very easy to compare at that point where like, man, I'm still
Right, right.
here. He's already moving on, doing things, making moves. But I think it's due to proximity, you know. But going back to your experiences about change and what you're gonna do differently when you have a son, or for your younger cousins, and how you're not gonna lecture them, I feel very similar. There's some ideologies that I would stray away from that I was taught,
Mm.
and I would teach whatever younger generation, like my kid, um, I would teach them differently, in a different manner. So I definitely agree with you there. Definitely feel on that part where I can, from my own experience and from what I understand about yours, you analyze this behavior, or you analyze something that happens to you, and you acknowledge it and you recognize it as something that you also
Right,
don't want to do.
right.
And you're going to do everything in your power to prevent that from happening. Now, what's going to be difficult is I remember last podcast I said you're most like, through your development, you end up being most like the people you're surrounded with through your development.
Yeah,
So the
yeah.
reason why your brother started sounding and acting like another dad to you is because, like, look, your brother was raised by your dad. Like,
Word.
he gained his traits. Like, he gained his ideologies. Where else would he gain some ideologies?
Yup.
Maybe during later stages of his development, he gains and adopts new ideologies that slightly differ. But fundamentally speaking, uh, the people you're most similar to are your family, the people you grew up with.
Mm.
But it's also interesting because you're here at 21 years old and you're recognizing things. You're
22 actually.
Oh, I'm sorry, 22. My mistake. Did you have a
Mm.
birthday recently?
Yeah, June 26th.
June 26th. Or happy belated birthday, sir.
I appreciate
I'm
it.
maybe like 17 days late, but
No, you good, you good.
But yeah, acknowledging these things, and I think that goes back to the idea of change. Like, there needs to be things that have to be acknowledged before the change has to happen.
Mm.
So, if someone's broke, like absolutely broke, what's the first thing that they have to acknowledge before they can start making a lot of money?
They're broke.
that they're broke. Exactly.
Right,
Exactly.
right.
That's the first thing you have to acknowledge. You know. And so you're already getting through the very difficult part. The acknowledgement part, and but
Yeah,
I'm
it's
gonna go. I'm gonna go kind of cheesy here, and
no, go ahead.
there's a One Punch Man line quote from in the episode where Genos is like about to fight the meteor, or not fight the meteor, or like shoot his laser against the meteor.
Hmm.
Do you remember that?
Is this season one?
Season one, right? A meteor's coming down to
Oh
Earth,
yeah,
and then
yeah, yeah,
Genos.
yeah.
There's like this. It's really well directed, but
Mm.
the music's really good too. And then the old rank 2 Bang hero comes in, and he gives a the anime lecture monologue, whatever you want to call it, and he's like, look, kid. First, you gotta relax. The end result will happen either way. There's no preventing it. And so Genos, obviously, he says, if I'm going to do something, why would I not give it all if the end result is going to be the same? If I'm going to die here, then why would I die without giving it my all? And then Bang continues and says, sometimes muddling through is best. And I took that to heart, because I think a lot of times, and you had mentioned that there's so many things that happen in this world that it's really hard to know like what things are correct and if we're doing the right thing, or something along those lines.
Yeah, yeah.
And I find myself like I always find myself I have to like Google something before I do it, right? And I'm missing out on a lot of parts of life where instead of like actually experiencing life, I'm going to a subreddit or I'm reading a forum before I have any experiences. I'm trying to change that by just saying, look, whatever these experiences through, I'm just gonna muddle through. I'm gonna do my best, and regardless of how bad my attempt is or how bad I do, I'm just getting through it because like sometimes you don't even do anything because you're too scared of the result. You're too scared of failure, and so you end up preventing yourself. Like I'm gonna relate this to drawing and illustration. I think the best thing that I could have done to progress in my illustration skills or develop more skills in drawing and whatever, or like whatever pursuit you want to do, is just do it. Like don't like.
Whoa.
It's really easy for me to say, don't be scared of failure, don't be scared of the results, but I think that's probably one of the most efficient ways to do it. If you spend an entire month, and if you muddle through for 30 days, I think the amount of mileage that you get over being anxious and actually maybe committing 5 days, like you're gonna get so much more mileage for just muddling through for 30 days.
Whoa.
And I think that happens a lot with life. Like, oftentimes people nowadays, you read it on forums and you watch these shorts on like Instagram, social media, where people have solutions for everything, have the answers.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you just gotta muddle through because not everything that what you're being told and what you're exposing yourself to is correct. It's like I'm always hearing self-help and this is the way you should do it and whatnot, but I honestly think that like if you just find your own way of doing things and whatever works for you, and it doesn't have to work for you, it's just getting through those experiences. I know it's really easy to compare in your case, like you see your brothers, he's moved to New York. I think that's very exciting for him. It's very awesome. And, you're still here in Maryland. I'm in a similar situation where my brother is like moving on to bigger and better, right? And it's like, fuck, I'm being left behind. But it's impossible to have their full perspective. But if you were in their full perspective, how much of what your ideas about them aren't actually true? Like, in my head, I'm like, dude, my brother's doing great or whatnot. He's doing an amazing job, but we don't know what they're going through, right? Maybe they're also muddling through and they have a lot of issues and they don't really know what they're doing. Maybe they're also on like forum posts and reading about shit before they do it, and they're unsure if what they're doing is correct.
Yeah, like you said, like our family like is most similar to us, so they can probably do the same exact thing we're going through. Like my brother's in New York, and all New York can get like they're very. No one really cares about one another, so like they do whatever. I mean, it's probably 100 times more stressful than I am. and like he's probably asking like, is this all this worth it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no,
Like
for sure.
you never know. Like that responsibility, the burden of that,
Mm.
this is very hard. It's very very hard.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So I also think you had mentioned like they are experiencing more stress, but I I think that you shouldn't weigh the amount of stress or the amount of like responsibilities or whatever.
why do you say
So
that?
it's important to acknowledge your own. So like by comparison, you can say that, oh, maybe they're experiencing more stress, right? If I were to compare myself to Elon Musk, right? Obviously, Elon Musk is going through way more stress than me on a daily
Right,
basis,
right.
right? But comparing your stress or my stress against Elon Musk is it doesn't do anything, right? First of all, it shouldn't devalue your stress. A lot of times we use like this mechanism where we say, "Oh, well, someone has it worse than me, so I shouldn't complain." I think that's not necessarily the best thing to do. I think it's important to acknowledge the things that you have, or regardless if they're good or bad. Um, but the amount of stress isn't the same as the severity or the weight of the stress. So even though I have way less stress than Elon Musk, it's not like um how can I put this? It's not like his how can I say this? It's not like the total accumulation of Elon Musk's stress is more valuable in a sense than mine.
Mm.
In my
Can you
opinion,
explain that a little
they
bit more?
okay. So I know I like completely butchered that, and I
No,
was
it's
like
all good.
saying shit without having an actual like concrete idea. But
Mm.
the value and the weight of your stress shouldn't be like isn't a 1-to-1 comparison in terms of ratio. So
Mm.
if we put it in numbers, right? I mean, I might be stressing about two things. Elon Musk probably stresses about 10,000 things. You know, just because his number of stressors is higher doesn't mean that the overall weight of the stresses added up is higher.
Mm. Okay. So kind of like, let's say, oh, I have to carry 1,000 rice grains, versus I gotta carry like one big box. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's a good way to put it.
Mm.
That's a very good way. It's like the feathers thing. What weighs more than a kilogram of feathers versus a kilogram of like pennies? You know,
Right.
there might be
Exactly.
more feathers, and I'm not saying that. And here's another thing to this is kind of contradictory. I'm not saying that like the feathers are weighted less than the pennies because one penny obviously weighs heavier than one feather, right? That's
Mm.
not the point I'm trying to make. I'm trying to make the accumulation, like the total number of stressors,
Right.
and it doesn't have to be stress. It could be
Mm.
problems, um, and it could also be monetary things. So,
Mm.
for instance, I think this is also another good way to put it. Like, someone that has 20 cars, that gives them a certain amount of happiness, right? But someone that's
Mm.
very happy with one car, it doesn't necessarily mean that more cars equals more happiness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that make sense, or am I just
Of
crazy?
course. Yeah. No, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
So like someone could have like 20 cars, right? Plenty happy, but someone could have equal happiness with just one car.
Mm.
So the overall weight of them is like the same, but the quantity isn't.
Mm. Yeah. It's like, you said something earlier that caught my ear. What was it? Um, it was something about, yeah. When we were talking about like mulling through things and like going doing your own thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
There was a quote that I heard that said, "To be a master, you had to be a fool,"
Hmm.
which is really interesting. Like it was talking about how like, what was it back then, like the jest, like the towns, like the jester that like does things for the king and the queen,
Hmm.
like they are in the best position because they are free to like make a fool of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
and like that's how they become so good at what they do. It's just being completely and utterly like free of themselves and like joking
Right.
around like ha ha ha. It's like
Right.
they know it works for them.
Yeah.
And um in high school I used to do doodles, and I would
Mm-hmm.
draw the weirdest. I'll just draw random things, and it makes sense now because like me doing that is like helped me um like draw when I like the most random things and like
Mm-hmm.
draw things I feel like they're expressing how I feel and
Mm-hmm.
how I think. 'Cause I was just messing around,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like those years of me just playing around. It's like um it did a lot for me. I didn't even know.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. I think it's there's also some other, famous quotes. It's like be the dumbest person in the room.
Right.
I think that's like a good embodiment of that. Um
Mm.
cuz like if you were the I don't know who it is. It's one of those like YouTube videos where like this guy wears glasses and he's sitting on a stage with a crowd, and he's just spewing out one-liners that sound
Mm.
really good, but that one's
Right.
a pretty good one, you know. Uh if I were to elaborate on that, it's like if you're the smartest person in the room, there's nothing to learn from the room. You can't really grow. You know, if you're the dumbest person in the room, you have a lot to fucking learn. You have a lot to fucking learn. You know,
Mm.
um, and so I think that it doesn't directly tie with your scenario where you were just doodling and you're okay with having like shitty doodles at first.
Right. Right.
You're not even thinking about having this master class session where you're showing off your
Yeah.
your artwork to Instagram and
Mm.
you have people that are judging you. It's like, look, I'm just doodling. I'm having fun. Just doing
Yeah.
my
I'm
thing.
just doing it to do it. You know.
Um, I think that's where a lot of growth happens.
Mm.
Where you're not even conscious of any repercussions. And by repercussions, I don't necessarily mean bad or good things, right?
Mm.
Repercussions could be, maybe some famous artist sees your work and is like, wow, that's really fucking good, and then suddenly you blow up.
Mm.
That's objectively a good thing. But that's not even in your mind. Your mind is, okay, well, I think there needs to be a line here.
Mm.
And instead of thinking, well, nowadays it's like, well, I think there needs to be a line here because it'll look good on Instagram, and I think I'll get a few likes here, and I'll get good
Right.
feedback and responses.
Right.
You know, before it's like, I think there's a line here because I think there should be a line here. It
Right.
was
Because it
simple back
makes sense.
then.
Right. It
But
feels natural. I'll put a line there. I'll put a line there. Like stuff
but
like that.
now it's like, well, if I don't put a line perfectly right at this angle, it's not
gonna
gonna
look
look good.
good.
Yeah, it's not gonna look good, and then I don't want to show anyone, and people won't think I'm a good artist. Dude, it happens for everything. You know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
It's like, oh well, if I don't wear these pants that look this way, or if I don't get the freshest kicks, or if I don't drive the nicest car, then people will think of me. Before it's like, dude, I gotta get groceries, and like you don't even think anymore.
You
You're
just
like,
put
well,
yeah.
I have a car, well, I'm just gonna drive.
Mm.
Nowadays, with all this, we're I, I think it's generally speaking, like it happens everywhere. I think it's like in our nature,
Yeah.
as humans. I think with the advancements of technology, it accelerated, or I always like to bring this up. Like humans have been around for a long fucking time, and like the shit that you see in our world and that we're experiencing now is so fucking new. Like less than 1% of humanity's history is involved with this social media shit, where everyone
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
see everything. There's so much surrounding us, and I think that's also what makes change very difficult, because
Mm.
we're exposed to, like, even in third world countries, they're exposed to shit that happens in the world,
Mm.
you know. So we see the best things that can happen. We see the nicest cars. We see the freshest clothes. We see everything. We see the nicest of everything. And when
Mm.
we compare our, I don't want to say ordinary lifestyles, because if I'm gonna be honest, like every life is actually super valuable, and it's I'm gonna get corny here, but every life is there's extreme beauty in every life, but it's hard to
Yeah.
see that beauty when you're surrounded by so much of it.
Hmm. Damn. That's a poetic line, man.
Thank you, sir. Get the
Yeah.
snaps out. Yeah, well, I don't know what they're called, right? People instead of people clapping, people do snaps.
Yeah, they snap.
Yeah.
Damn. It's hard to see the beauty when there's so much of it. Wow. Dang. Okay, Miguel. When did you become a poet? Like, shit.
Hit him up with the
Damn,
one.
damn.
We gotta get the one-liners going. That's how we get
Word.
That's how our podcast blows up. You know, someone makes a short or something, and someone says it, but you know.
Put some like inspiration music behind it.
Yeah, you know, like they have like videos of David Goggins running or something, and then
Yeah,
you just hear all like
yeah.
these one-liners from different people, and you're like, oh yeah, motivational video, 2021 workout, like, you know.
Mm. And they actually help people like
Yeah, no, for sure, for
yeah,
sure.
which is amazing. Like just one line can like change your life like that. That is crazy. Um, Before I was amazed by your poet, I was gonna say something. Hold on. You said something a while back. I took note of about like surrounding yourself with the right people.
Mhm.
Um, I think that um, I think if I look back my entire life, I think that has been a big factor of why I'm not where I want to be. Not blaming it on anyone else. It's
Mhm.
definitely my fault. But I
Right.
did not always surround myself with the best people.
Mhm.
And don't get me wrong, I did change. I did change, but not in the best way.
Right. Right.
I went complete opposite of where my natural instincts were supposed to go.
Mhm.
Um, just the way I looked, the way I talked. I used to talk like I was from like the hood, from the ghetto at some points. Like,
Mhm.
yo, I was born in the suburbs.
Born in the suburbs, Moco,
Yeah,
baby.
like I don't like I experienced no like real um I experienced no gang stuff like that.
Mhm.
And I used to talk like, yo, like I got this deep voice, you know. But it's like,
Yeah.
yo, I'm like I like anime and I like to
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
yo, I
I'm
got like
hard
two
like that. I'm
fights in my
hard.
entire
Let's
life.
go.
Like shit.
Yeah.
I'm a sensitive person. Like yo,
Uh-huh.
let me stop lying to myself.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I think I would love to make like if I go back, I would love to change people I hang out around with.
Mhm.
I know you, Miguel, and Junior, like y'all some like real genuine people. Like I always
Mhm.
learn from y'all. Um, you know, Kevin and Jarvis, like a few others that I wish I hanged out with instead of other groups. I'm not
Mhm.
saying that these people are bad. Like I've listening to some of their stories, like it's really amazing. They're great people. It's just
Yeah.
that me personally, I didn't fit that group.
Mhm.
Like they can be talking about something I don't connect with when deep down I want to talk about other things.
Mhm.
Um, and like being around certain people, I feel like I can like express myself. I
Right.
can, you know, I can be a fool around them. I can be a fool
Uh-huh.
around these certain
Yeah. Yeah.
people.
For sure.
I can make weird voices around you, and like
Mhm.
you know, experiment with myself. What works, what doesn't work. Just like doing it because I want to do it.
Mhm.
And I think that's the beauty of like, you know, that anime line like, he's my friend, like
Yeah.
the power of friendship.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think like that is some real shit because it's like it's true. The power of friendship and family can go a long way. Like you can bring a person that's been suffering for 30 years back from the depths of hell, just being
Mhm.
around good people.
Right.
And quality time is very, very important. More important than money. Like, cause
Mhm.
if you want to make money, you gotta have quality time with people and network and make ideas and stuff like that. So quality time over everything.
Mhm. Yeah. No, for sure.
Mm.
I think to touch on that, I think it's a more common idea that surrounding yourself with the right people. But I think there's also another idea
Mm.
which
Go
isn't
ahead.
as common, and it's instead of changing the people you surround yourself with, it's changing the people around you already. Um, so what I mean by that is, uh, in your case, you said that you'd rather surround yourself with different friends, or if you could go back, you know,
Mm.
do different things. Um, I think it's less common for an individual to change the people around him. I think the overall easier solution is just change the people around you.
Mm. And how would one do that?
Yeah,
See,
I mean,
that's how
okay. Here's the thing, right?
you can't.
Changing
Go
yourself
ahead.
is hard enough, right?
Mm.
But changing the people around you is even harder
Yeah.
because you have way less control because as an individual, you can literally control everything that you do. I move my hand up, I move my hand down. I say this, I
Mm.
say that. You know, I can't really control you. You know,
Right.
I can influence you. I can say certain things. I can, uh, I can incentivize certain behaviors. I can be motivated enough where I change myself enough, and maybe that oozes into you as a. How can I say this?
Pause.
It's a. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
yeah. Pause on that. Right.
Yeah.
I change myself
Yeah.
enough where it's contagious. There it is. Like change is contagious.
Yeah.
For some people, they are resistant to change, and I'm gonna reference Joe Rogan where he says, dude, he makes it clear that he doesn't like surrounding himself with lazy people because he states that it's contagious. That shit is fucking contagious. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and he had also mentioned when you're surrounded by people that like just go and get it, like go getters, like it's so motivating. When everyone around you is just like on their shit, no excuses, making shit happen, on top of their shit, holding themselves accountable, like it it reinforces that type of behavior. It's like, hey, this is good. Someone else is doing it. Like this feels good. This will feel good to continue to do.
Mm.
And that's why like gym buddies make going to the gym very easy. You hold each other accountable.
What?
But yeah, I mean, change is fucking hard, man, and changing people around you is even harder. Um, I think
Yeah. Right.
it's really difficult that in itself. But if we were to focus back on why is change difficult, I mean, we could talk. I think this change thing is like a crazy topic because you can just go on forever. We can
Mm.
pull up some anecdotal evidence from our own experiences,
Mm.
and we could just keep on going. But I think also what makes change difficult is the amount of distractions we have in our lives.
Oh my
Like
God. Yes.
I've definitely noticed there's this fairly new thing. It's called YouTube Shorts, where instead of watching a video, I'm pretty sure YouTube Shorts has destroyed my attention span even more. But
No.
I think it's very similar to TikTok. I don't know
Oh,
how
they've
TikTok
been
works.
copying everyone. They've been copying each other for a while now.
Right. So
Instagram has it.
YouTube Shorts is like I just keep on scrolling and watch like these short videos, memes or whatever, and I can. So I was actually supposed to sleep. Here's a good thing. Like a couple hours ago, I was supposed to sleep before we did this podcast. All right,
Mm.
so that I was a little bit refreshed. I went up at like 7, and I was supposed to sleep for maybe like 2 hours or something. Set my alarm. I didn't sleep a minute or a second. I was on YouTube Shorts
Damn.
the entire time,
No way.
just scrolling. And I was like, yeah, holy shit, this is crazy. And it's like, I accomplished nothing. Maybe had like some dopamine. I had some fun watching some stuff. I was laughing. It's funny.
Mm.
Very entertaining. But like the amount of distractions is crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
Damn. Yeah, man. I can second that. Um, I remember I was like, okay, cause I ordered a pizza. I was like, I'm gonna eat this pizza. I'm gonna go like write some notes down. Like, okay, why is it making so hard to change? But I ended up just like, I sat on my phone, scrolled through Instagram, exited out, opened it right back up again, scrolled again, and then I went straight to Netflix and I watched like a 30-minute show. And by the time I look up at my time, it's like, oh shoot, it's like 9:50, or it's 8:50.
Yeah.
And then I was about to go down. So I was about to go to like my room, and then my stomach started bubbling.
Yeah.
And then I sat on the toilet and I was on my phone again.
Yeah.
Just scrolling, like, bro, come on, Abdul.
Yeah.
It's like, it destroys the discipline in your plans, like, to be better.
Yeah. I mean, it makes okay. So these distractions actually make a lot of sense. Like, so these companies like Facebook, these social media markets or whatever. What was interesting for me to hear is like, what would you think? Okay, when I heard this, I was like, it was almost like an aha moment, like a mini epiphany. But let me ask you a question. Just follow along with me for a little bit. Like,
okay.
Who, in terms of competitors, who do you think YouTube competes with the most? Or I can't. Fuck! I spoiled it. Who do you think Facebook competes with the most?
Okay, YouTube.
Yeah. Well,
wild guess.
Right. What made you think YouTube? No, I'm kidding. But so, obviously the immediate competitors would be like, you would immediately think of other social medias like Instagram, Twitter, these things. But Facebook's biggest competitor is YouTube. And the reason why it's YouTube isn't because it's a social media platform or, you can make posts or whatever. It's the fact that these companies don't really care about other social media platforms. It's like what they care about is your attention and how long they can retain it for. If you're on YouTube 12 hours a day, that's 12 less hours on Facebook. And when I heard that, I was like, holy shit. Holy shit. These companies aren't making social media platforms or whatever. The reason why they're free is because you are the product. You're using their platform, you're experiencing them via Facebook. Maybe information is also something that they gain from you, but your attention is so fucking valuable. Your 12 hours spent on Facebook is okay, if you worked minimum wage or whatever, 12 hours, a rough estimate, I'll say, minimum wage is $10 for the sake of making things easy. It's $120. That being said, I think that a person's time is way more valuable than that. According to Jordan Peterson, which is a pretty good scholar, and he has some good discussions, but he said he gave a rough estimate of $50 of an hour for a person's time, but he argues that it's way higher than that. But for the sake of his example, $50, 50 times 12. I'm not
good at math.
Yeah, neither am I.
Let me pull out my calculator.
That's $600. $600 fucking dollars. 12 hours. That time is being rerouted into social media, into YouTube videos, into things that distract you. Now, let me go back to the reason why I started on this tangent was it makes a lot of fucking sense that these social media giants already understand human psychology and the science of human attention and our reward system, our dopamine system. It's like, why would I do things difficult if I can... Exactly. Why would I do difficult things if I can already achieve satisfaction through the easiest routes possible?
Yeah.
And this goes back to way long ago, before social media was the thing, before we had houses, roads, and whatever. Humans found the easiest way to do things. You go through. I was listening to this one lecture, and it was how the human body or the human mind is very smart. It protects itself and finds the easiest ways to do things, and that's why boredom is really important. We people don't get bored anymore because of pure saturation of everything that surrounds us. But if there's two bushes, right, and it's a very large bush, and it has berries that are edible, you know, we're picking the berries that are very close on the outer edge of the bush, and as soon as you can't reach the bushes in the middle that are very deep, you switch to the next bush. Why is
Mm.
that? It's because it's easier to do so than reach further in. It takes less
Right.
energy and less effort to achieve the same result. You both get one berry. And the human body and the human mind just reeks or just constantly seeks the easiest way to do something, or the easiest way to achieve something. You know,
Mm.
how, like, if I want to be happy, really, really quick ways of happiness are like what, drugs or whatever. I guess drugs, masturbation,
Mm.
um, scrolling through 1 hour long memes that give you instant dopamine rushes like every six
Right.
seconds. So I no longer have to think about working out because I'm getting the dopamine. It's already there. These quick bursts of happiness. Lifting weights, that does not make me happy, but being swole as fuck and shredded and strong, feeling good, that gives me dopamine. But if I can get
Mm.
it in 6 seconds, I'd take that any day over, how
Putting
many
in the
hour
hours and
how many
hours.
how many hours. And these giants, these social media giants and tech giants already understand that. They have that broken. There's way smarter people than me that have broken this down, that are working in teams. They already got us. They got us already, man.
Mm.
They have us. They have us.
Damn. What do you think before social media and all these technologies? What do you think was like some of the biggest distractions for humans?
Biggest distractions. I don't know, drugs. I
Yeah.
know, like smoking. Smoking was a big thing in the United States. It's still a pretty big thing everywhere else in the world.
Mm.
Um, you know, maybe like sex. Sex is a pretty big
Yeah, I
one.
was gonna say woman
Yeah.
because like all like the magazines and stuff, that was like the biggest. They always put like a beautiful woman on the front page.
Yeah.
They have
Yeah.
models everywhere.
So I was listening to a Joey Diaz podcast, and he's a great storyteller.
Mm.
And he was saying how, like, nowadays people like us that have access to pornography and whatever, Instagram, or you look at these women and you're like, holy fuck, these are beautiful women, right? We are able to see more beautiful women than like the hottest guy like 100 years ago in one day. In one day I can
Damn.
see like I can see like the like really fucking hot women, like hundreds of them in one day. More women than like the most attractive guy 100 years ago could do in his lifetime.
Mm.
It's actually crazy.
Damn.
And when I heard Joey Diaz say that, I was like, damn, that's a really good point.
Mm.
Although it's not a physical thing. I don't see them in person or anything, right?
Mm.
Maybe a couple times a year, but it doesn't compare. I can
Mm.
scroll through hundreds of pages, and never be satisfied some days.
Mm.
And then back like 100, not even 100 years ago, So we're already getting that stimuli, and that's kind of why I've been trying to do no fap, but failing every once in a while. Because it's hard.
Yeah.
My brain
That's,
is already wired, so I need to regain plasticity and abstain for a while.
you should or we should actually I don't even know what to like. I've been trying to find an answer for the past like 3 years now,
Uh-huh.
but I said before, but it takes a lot of time, like a lot of time, and which is good for it's very good, in the sense because let's say if you like think about the next generation, they're gonna come with us with questions like how do we do
Mhm.
this, how do we do that, and we
Yeah.
have like the experience and the wisdom to give it to them.
Mhm.
It's like, okay, so back then I did this and it prolonged my change 5 years. So do this instead, and you'll see better benefits in the year. And it's like that, so it will only benefit them. I mean, it has the potential to benefit, but it's up to them if they want to like use that knowledge. Um, um, I was gonna say something. And another reason it's so hard to change is because there's, you may have said this, but there's so many like options to change into. It's overwhelming. Like I can be uh, a businessman. I can be a famous artist. Like it gets so overwhelming. At the end of the day, I just don't want to change. There's too many like,
Hmm.
there's too many things to pick from. Like how do I know like what I pick is the right one?
Yeah. No, for
You
sure.
know. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very intimidating when you have so many options. It's like the Trader. I think I said it was like the Trader Joe's.
Yeah. The three pastas.
Yeah. So like the reason why Trader Joe's is so successful is they don't buy every brand. You know,
Yeah.
they just buy a small selection, and it'll work. I mean, Trader Joe's is awesome.
Mm.
They have some really good food. I
I've
love.
been there like once.
Yeah. My family loves their desserts. They have
Mm.
really good desserts there.
Mm.
We we high key fucks with it. So. Oh, I just got reminded of remember you had said a few minutes earlier before I went on several tangents that you're like pretending to be like hard and shit or talking in a
Yeah,
deeper
yeah.
voice or whatever. So what was interesting was I moved from DC to Maryland in like sixth grade, the middle of sixth grade,
Mm.
and I didn't realize at first, but like the culture was completely different. You know, in DC, we would walk around on the streets and then, you know, fuck around, swear, do whatever. Like the language used was completely different. It took me a little bit. It took me like maybe a year or two to
Mm.
change like the way I talked and like what I said.
Mm.
Because when I came to Ridgeview Middle School, I was saying some shit that was like I was like, "Oh, we're in the suburbs now. You shouldn't be saying that. You should not be
Or
saying that." So, but yeah, I definitely know what you mean.
or
Um, you know, I was I had a group of friends, and I hung out with my brother's friends, because my friends in sixth grade, middle school, sixth grade, middle school, I was bringing my Beyblades and Yu-Gi-Oh cards to school. So we had metal detectors in the entrances of our school.
yeah.
Alice Deal Middle School, we had metal detectors. And the first day I brought my Yu-Gi-Oh cards, they were in this metal tin. And my Beyblades were also metal. And so I put it through the machine, you know, like the kind of like at the airports where they can see things through your bag. And they're like,
Mm.
"Hold on, what's that?" Cuz they don't really know what the hell that is, right? So they need to open it up. I was so embarrassed because like I opened it up and there's like this huge line and all these other kids are looking at this kid that just brought his Yu-Gi-Oh cards in the tin and Beyblades in sixth grade, you know, in sixth grade. And I would sit in the fucking cafeteria. I'd sit in the cafeteria with my Yu-Gi-Oh cards and my Beyblades and and we would like duel. during lunch. Yeah, I was fucking.
Hey yo, that kid got Yu-Gi-Oh cards.
Yeah, for sure. And so when I went to when I went to Ridgeview, I didn't bring any Yu-Gi-Oh cards anymore. I had to
Mm.
change. You know, there was no one there that also did that. And
Mm.
so I kind of felt out of place. Like I think that was my main focus. My grades were really bad. My grades dropped really hard because my focus wasn't studies anymore. It was like
It was
socializing
to
and
fit in, yeah. I feel you.
and like the reason why my grades were fine before I left was because I was already in cliques. I was already established in my clique. I had a
Mm.
place. Um,
Word.
and so I didn't need to overthink it or give any extra energy or whatever, you know. But when I moved, it's like that's no longer my focus. My focus is to make friends and find my own place, and so my grades dropped for sixth grade. Grades are really bad.
Mm. Hmm. Have you ever watched Coach Carter?
Coach Carter. I think so.
There was this
Oh, it was the
one
basket. It
part.
was the basketball.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
the yeah? I remember watching it, but I don't remember it. But I do remember watching clips, or
Mm.
rewatching clips recently.
There was this great quote. It was towards the end. It says, "Our biggest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our biggest fear is we're powerful beyond measure."
Mm-hmm.
And like I don't remember the exact like full quote, but it was like the idea is that we are afraid to show ourselves because we don't want to like like feel like we're showing off or belittling anyone.
Mm-hmm.
So we're afraid to show our full selves. And I remember like a similar story to yours. Um, I went to summer school and I kept my you know what tech decks are?
Oh yeah, the skateboards.
Yeah, I kept it in my backpack and I was afraid to bring it out and use it.
Uh huh. Yeah.
Um, and I just keep like at that point, why would I bring it? And I
Mm.
remember one day I didn't bring it, and then the quote unquote cool kids in the class, like I remember during like a lunch break, they took
Yeah.
theirs out and started playing. I'm like, oh shit,
Yeah.
like y'all play tech, y'all use tech deck.
Yeah.
So the next day, the first thing before I even brushed my teeth, the first thing I did was like, hey, where my tech decks at?
Where are
I'm
my
about to
tech
show
decks
all.
at? Exactly. Yep.
I'm about to show all them up. So I
Mm.
got there, and like lunch break, they took the tech decks out. I said, y'all do tech, y'all play tech deck?
Uh
Like, yeah. It's like, alright, I challenge y'all to look like a skate off. And like,
huh.
bro, I demolished them. I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and they're like like a year older than me. And so like, there was this cute girl in the group, and I was like, I'm gonna show you what I'm gonna show you what's
I'm
up.
gonna show you what's good. Show you what's good, girl.
Word.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
Mm.
Oh
So it's
shit.
like, but I lost a few games, but which was good.
Yeah.
Make me humble. Can't
Yeah.
take the girl that easy.
Take
Um,
flexing with a tech day.
yeah,
This is still your girl over here.
word, real shit. Um, Change is good as long as you stay humble and not
Mm.
try to like feel like you're better than anyone.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean that's like
yeah, that.
a. No, no, sorry.
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead. It's
I
all
was
you.
just
All
gonna
you.
say like because when you change for when you and you stay humble, you become authentic and genuine and transparent, and people can relate to you even more. Like we're all human. We change, but we still have our flaws from years and years
Mm.
and years ago. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
change can be very beautiful because it's like I learned from my mistakes in the past, but don't get twisted. Don't glorify me. I still have plenty of flaws.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like it's kind of motivating in a sense. Like even a person down bad like that can change. Then maybe I can too, with
Mm-hmm.
all my flaws and all. But you were gonna say something. I cut you off.
What was it? It was. Oh, okay. Like the tech deck thing, and
Mm.
it's like it's not like you changed. You remain the same. I think the
Word.
environment changed around you, which you were able to see like now this behavior is acceptable socially.
Exactly.
Um. So actually, you could have changed actually. So you weren't. I mean, I this probably has happened to me as well, where like I hid a behavior, so I changed in that way by pretending
Mm.
pretending I didn't like tech decks for this instance, like. But as soon as it became hip and this was the cool thing to do, you know, hey, I'm a beast too. And then, I never had tech decks. I was I remember the tech decks. I actually remember in middle school, like I remember seeing them around
Mm.
in Ridgeview. Never got one though. But yeah,
Like,
a lot of behaviors are only revealed when it's deemed socially acceptable.
right.
And
Is,
it happens all the time. You know, I think it
mm,
also happens within our friend group. You know,
mm,
there's a reason why, and this goes back to discourses. I don't know if we discussed about this, but I read this text. It was pretty good. It was like 14 pages or something on discourses, spelled with a big D. Pause. But no, that's actually like they were like the first 2 pages was like explaining the definition of discourse, and it's not like the regular definition, but it's spelled with a big D. Pause.
mm,
Um, and so we carry ourselves differently depending on our environment and the people that we're around. So I speak differently. Uh, I guess the biggest thing is like when you're with a girl, you speak differently.
yeah.
You act a little bit different.
Oh, most definitely. I'm so
Versus when
guilty
you're
of
with
that.
your homies, like you're just
Mm,
chilling. You're not on your guard. You're straight, right? Like no problem.
mm,
And we adopt these different discourses depending on the situation. So if I were to publicly speak, I wouldn't swear as often, or I wouldn't swear at all. Um, I think I would probably speak the same way, but I would be more mindful of what I say. I wouldn't use
mm,
anime references. Like I would never reference anime. So that's an example of
mm,
me adopting a different discourse in a different environment.
mm.
And you know, to tie it back, like to find some zip tie for this, it's our discourses bleed into each other as soon as we find that that features from our discourses are acceptable.
Right.
So when you start getting comfortable with the girl you've been talking to, and y'all are getting closer, and you know you can put your guards down and everyone's chill, then
Mm.
you can start opening up, and shit that you would say in our friend group, you're gonna start saying around her.
That would be a dangerous sight, though.
I mean,
I'll be honest. I'll be dangerous.
right off the bat, like I would probably refrain from talking about Dodal in a conversation,
Mm,
and like flooding our conversation with like anime quotes,
mm.
you know. But as soon as I find out if she's a weeb, you already know the quotes will start coming out.
Oh, hell yeah.
But that's just
Yeah.
me. That's me being a human being and analyzing the environment and adjusting my behavior accordingly.
Right. Exactly. It was the same thing when like anime became quote unquote cool. Like I would always talk about. I remember Junior telling me this. I would always talk about anime regardless. Like I didn't care. I
Oh,
loved it too much not to talk about it. I remember he told me that he didn't start talking about it until you heard me talking about it. Um, Same with Oric. He loved anime, but he never mentioned
yeah. Yeah.
it.
Oric watched anime? She.
Yeah, see, you don't know because he kept it to himself. He didn't want people to find out. Oh, you watch that Japanese anime? Like you're weird. I'm
Oh.
like, bitch, I'm gonna watch it regardless. I don't care. But
Oh.
you know,
Yeah.
different personalities for different situations.
Yeah. I didn't really talk to too many people in high
Mm.
school. I definitely became like a shut in, but whenever I did have conversations about with anyone, there was like two things that I would talk about: either Dota or or anime. That was like the only things, or computers. That was like
Mm.
the only things I talked about with people.
I remember we were in Mr. Marsden's class, and because we never talked until, well, we did talk, but not like full on conversation
Yeah,
till
yeah.
it was junior or senior year.
Oh.
We were talking to Marsden's class, and then you found out I watched anime. And
Oh.
you're like, bro, you pulled out your phone so fast and you showed me all your AMVs. I'm like, oh, this is time tough.
Oh, did I? Is that our like first encounter type thing?
Yeah.
Shit.
The AMVs in those gun videos that go on beat.
Oh yeah. Oh, I vaguely remember this, but I remember Mr. Mars. It was there were some days it was cold as hell in the
Mhm.
winter. Holy shit.
I kind of like that. I wear sweatshirts all day.
Yeah. I remember, dude. That was. I'm telling you, those are my conversations, right? Where like we didn't really talk
Mm.
much, but I just pull out my phone so fast, and like the first thing I show you,
Yup.
like I was just
Yup.
like this weird kid that just didn't really have a lot of social interactions. So when I did, I just
Mm.
oozed out. Pause. Uh, my discourses were still like not fully developed, I guess.
Or, but hey, you changed for the better. You said,
No, I can imagine that. Like I just whip out my phone. Yo, watch this. You gotta
watch
watch
this
this right
shit.
now.
It was the was it
Rising.
Wiki?
It was Rising Heroes.
It
I
had to
think.
be Rising Heroes.
It was Rising Heroes because that was my first
Mm.
one. I showed Junior, and Junior was like, that was when I showed Junior, because it was only like I would show Matt, and he would be like, "Yo, that's pretty cool," and
Mm.
then one day I showed Junior, and then Junior showed positive reinforcement. He was like, "Yo, this is just like the things I saw online," and he's like, "This is so cool," and then when that happened, I was like, "Well, I guess I gotta show everyone," and that's
Word.
kind of what I did.
Dang. That's funny, man. Oh, I'm kind of pretty drained on ideas.
Yeah.
Can't think of anything. Do you have any last words?
I think I'm good for now.
Or alright, I shall do the outro.
Yep.
Thank you guys for listening. We really appreciate you. If you made it this far, I appreciate you even 10 times more. This is actually our 10th podcast. So it's been, we've been doing it just like, another way of expressing ourselves in like a therapeutic kind of way. And like if you're listening with us, like, it really means a lot. Our next podcast will be the formula of happiness. The formulas of happiness. Um, Again, thank you for everything, and see you guys next podcast.